Welcome back to the Best BT Podcast. This is episode 29, talking about disability models. So the Nagy model was designed in 1965 by a social worker. It describes health status as a relationship between health and function. So it focuses almost entirely on the physiological. So it talks about the pathology, the physiological impairments, functional limitations, and disability. So an example would be a 22-year-old patient presents with progressive weakness and paralysis of the arm, trunk, and legs. The patient is diagnosed with a C6 spinal cord injury. The patient uses a power wheelchair for mobility and requires assistance for self-care, some bed mobility and transfers, and some ADLs. Prior to the injury, the patient was a third-year physical therapy student studying for the NPTE. So pathology, C6 spinal cord injury, impairment, loss of motor function below the level of C6, functional limitation, unable to ambulate, disability, cannot continue school or begin work as a physical therapist. Now moving on to the International Classification of Functioning, Disability, and Health, the ICF model, looks at body, individual, and societal aspects, both activity and participation. So body function is the function of body systems. Body structures is the damage or lack thereof to actual body structures. Activity is the execution of tasks by a person, including mobility, self-care, communication, and learning ability. Participation mainly involves life situations, domestic life, interpersonal relationships, community, social, and civic life. Environmental factors, technology, the environment, both natural or man-made, support and relationships available, the patient's attitude, and services, systems, and policies in place. So going back to the same example, a 22-year-old patient presents with progressive weakness and paralysis of the arms, trunk, and legs. The patient is diagnosed with a C6 spinal cord injury. The patient uses a power wheelchair for mobility and requires assistance for self-care, some bed mobility and transfers, and some ADLs. Prior to the injury, the patient was a third-year physical therapy student studying for the NPTE. The patient lives in a rural town with no sidewalks, no public transportation, and no readily available private medical transportation. The patient was previously very active in the local CrossFit gym and was attending class full-time as a graduate student. So now using the ICF model, we can see the health condition is a complete spinal cord injury with quadriplegia. The impairment is paralysis. And now we look at activity limitations, so incapable of using public transportation or other non-traditional transportation methods. Participation restriction, can no longer participate in graduate school or the local CrossFit gym, and the main environmental factor is the lack of infrastructure in the local area. So you can see how the ICF model gets a more full picture of a person than the Nagy model. That's it for episode 29, Disability Models. Episode 30, we'll talk about physical therapy legislation. As always, the outline will be in the show notes. Thanks for joining me.